Well, it was vintage Lai Mohammed, a blistering attack on a report about the protests that plunged Nigeria into its worst civil unrest for decades. Demonstrations that have had a dramatic impact on the Nigerian government's global standing. And so today, the information minister was in his fiery, sizzling element, roasting that Lagos NSAS Lekki shooting report and faulting it for failing on virtually all fronts. He described it as a rehash of unverified fake news that was not supported by evidence, saying it was a report about allegations rather than an investigation.
When I was out of Lagos State is the only convening authority, and Lagos State, of course, is going to issue its own, white paper report. I'm only commenting on a document which is circulating in public domain. A document based on which many of you have written editorials. A document on which people have contributed freely. And it's only fair that the government also puts across its own side. Otherwise, if only one side of the commentary is heard, that is what we delivered. So this has nothing to do, and it is with no prejudice to whatever Lagos State is going to come up with its.
Lai Mohammed and the rather tame sections of what he said there. Well, for an assessment of what the information minister said, I'm joined now in the studio by Arise Abuja, Director of News and Political Editor Sumner Sambo, and by Arise News Analyst and former Chairman of the Editorial Board of Daily Trust newspaper, Mahmud Jega. Thank you very much indeed to both of you. Let me come to you, Sumner, first. What do you make of what the information minister had to say in his reaction to that report?
He's simply doing his job to defend the government, and a lot of persons have said that at times he was emotional about the issue, but he actually made a lot of sense in some of the submissions that he gave, because I mean there have been a lot of loopholes in this judicial panel report. And Charles, a judicial panel, when it's set up, is like one of the highest set of panels that you can actually have a lot of trust in, because it takes its processes from the judiciary. And almost when panelists sit and then eyewitnesses are called upon, the petitioners are called upon, and then defendants are all called upon, it's usually an atmosphere of everyone trying to provide facts, and evidences will drive the conversation. But if we are having a situation whereby this panel report is having some loopholes, I want you to question if indeed it was a judicial, in quote, panel, then it looks like there's a lot that needs to be attended to. And the facts here have to be on issues like, for example, the police that were killed. And you could see Lai Mohammed trying to say that, look, we had a lot of civilians killed, apart from those that were killed in Lekki itself. There were lots of civilians killed, there were lots of policemen killed, and soldiers. He said, I think about 37 policemen were killed, 6 soldiers were killed, and about 50-something civilians. So in all of this, if this panel report did not indicate that aspect, then there's a fundamental issue that has led to this dispute. That's why you can see him saying all of that.
Let me bring Mahmud Jega in, because just based on what Sumner Sambo is saying there, I'm wondering if we could clarify once again the remit of that tribunal, of that inquiry in Lagos, the scope and scale of its investigation. Was it set up to investigate specifically the Lekki toll gate shootings, or was it also looking at everything to do with the End SARS protest that took place in Lagos? Because in that case, it would involve the police. If not, I mean, you know, it's a moot point, isn't it?
Well, certainly it was not meant to just address what happened at the Lekki toll gate, but everything that happened in Lagos State. Don't forget, other states also set up similar panels, but we are yet to hear from them. You see, when the military took over power in this country in 1966, one of the first decrees they did was the Tribunals of Inquiry Decree, which is essentially the same. You know, it's now an act in various states. And the military, in the years that they ruled Nigeria, made plenty of use of that decree. And we had a lot of judicial commissions of inquiry. Sometimes we had administrative committees, but as Sumner said, the highest one is the judicial commission. And regularly in the 70s and 80s, the reports of those committees together with the white paper, they were not leaked. Maybe that time there was no social media. So they were not leaked. But we will see a picture of the chairman of the committee presenting the report to the military governor or to president or someone, and after some weeks it will be published in the newspapers together with the white paper. Now, in all the instances that I remember, there was never controversy about the findings of the Judicial Commission, but there could be controversy over the white paper because the government did not have to accept all the recommendations. Sometimes you will see in the white paper that the commission recommends so, and in the comment they will say government rejects this recommendation. Exactly, they pick according to their own rules. But I can't remember any time when there was a serious dispute about the findings of the Judicial Commission until this time. And even before the minister spoke today, you see there were many articles and comments on social media and also in the newspapers in the last 1 or 2 weeks, and certainly serious issues were raised about the integrity of this report, which the minister repeated today. If I recall too, the findings of the forensic expert who examined the medical data of all the people who were shot and injured and concluded that no military grade
the ballistic expert.
The
ballistic expert.
Exactly. He said no military grade weapons were fired.
No high velocity live ammunition, that kind of thing.
Because if
that was basically discarded. I mean, they didn't seem to take that into consideration.
Exactly. And this is supposed to be the forensic expert. And then the issue that the minister harped on very well. Where are the family members of the victims? That is a serious question. People were shot since last year or are alleged to have been shot. And up to now we have not seen. And you know, he put it mischievously. He said the commission recommends the payment of compensation.
So who are we going to pay if the guy is afraid to come out, wouldn't he be afraid to come out to the same federal government that's going to, or the state government that's going to make the compensation? So let me bring you in, Sumner Sambo. He also makes the arguments, just picking up on what Mahmud Jega was saying, that if such bullets were fired directly at the protesters, that there would have been many more casualties, which he said was clearly not the case. Does he have a point there? In other words, if you're spraying bullets...
Remember on the night it happened, Charles, you and I were here.
Yes, absolutely. We broke the news right here on Arrival.
And my thinking then and conclusion then was that, I mean, if there was a direct shooting, the bullets will be going straight and it will penetrate more than 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, a single bullet alone can penetrate more than 4.
A high velocity bullet. Because of the proximity.
Proximity. I mean, we could see the soldiers, but at a point we heard that they were shooting up. But the facts also started emerging, and the facts were mixed up because here we could hear some eyewitnesses, including DJ Switch, actually saying that, look, they shot directly and then they moved some of the bodies. But 2 or 3 days later, we're expecting some of those bodies to be seen across Lagos. It was now difficult. So could it be that those soldiers actually shot into the air and not directly? This is what we expected the judicial panel of inquiry to actually take a look into. And when they had that ballistics expert, we could have seen all of that happening directly, as in seeing the facts emerging. But Charles, the whole thing is confusing at this point.
It is.
I can tell you that, yeah, maybe a few persons could have been shot at directly. Because even the soldiers have a rule of engagement.
Yes.
And the rule of engagement is that when you're shooting, you have to allow certain things to happen. And when you shoot, people have to be evacuated and all of that.
Please stay with us. We're going to continue this chat in a moment. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as we continue our analysis of the Nigerian government's reaction to the Lagos State Judicial Panel's report on the attack on NSAS protesters last year. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Enyugolu. So, as you might have heard, the Nigerian government has moved to plough down the Lagos State Panel inquiry into the Lekki tollgate shootings in October last year. The Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, has cast serious doubt over the report that the panel produced, which was leaked on social media. In some of the strongest terms so far, Mr. Mohammed described it as fake news and tales by the moonlight, and said it was riddled with errors, inconsistencies, discrepancies, speculation, and omissions.
It's no longer news that the Lagos State Judicial Panel of Inquiry that investigated cases of police brutality, as well as the incident of October 20th, 2020 at the Lekki tollgate in Lagos, has submitted its report. The submission took place while I was out of the country on national assignment. Unlike many commentators and analysts, we took our time to read and digest the report, and we are now well placed to respond. Without mincing words, let me say right away that never in the history of any judicial panel in this country has its report been riddled with so many errors, inconsistencies, discrepancies, speculations, innuendos, omissions, and conclusions that are not supported by evidence.
Lai Mohammed, and with me in the studio, Arise Abuja Director of News and Political Editor Sumner Sambo, and Arise News Analyst and former Chairman of the Editorial Board of Daily Trust newspaper, Mahmud Jega. Thank you for staying with us. Let me come to you, Mr. Jega. He also drew attention to the use of the term massacre, didn't he?
Well, that is actually the main issue in dispute. Did a massacre take place at Lekki tollgate or did it not? On the night of this event, the social media very actively promoted the story that there was a massacre. Even then, the government and the military and police authorities questioned it, but really almost everyone was sold on the story. It was even broadcast internationally. But this matter of the families of the victims was raised very early on, and it has been here now. And up to now, there is still confusion. We haven't seen the family members. Some people who are reported to have died later on turned out to be alive. So really, there is a lot of...
It's an enigma wrapped in a puzzle, as somebody once said. But let me bring you in, Sumner. With regard to the list of those who were said to have died, because he drew attention to that as well. He mentioned the names of the casualties at the Lekki tollgate, numbers 3, somebody called Jide, 42, somebody called Tolu or Tola or something, and then number 43, Wisdom. And he suggested these were fictitious names because they had no surnames and yet they were confirmed dead. I mean, is there some merit in that?
Well, the flip side is that he's also admitting that some persons on that list actually died, but he's only disputing those 3 names.
Yes, that's a good point.
Yes, because we should also take a look at this panel report and not totally discard it, because you had a former Deputy Inspector General of Police on that team, the Taiwo Lakano. So could it be that this person who has served the Nigerian police over the years before he retired will be on that panel and also not follow the procedures?
Absolutely.
And try to ensure that the panel is properly guided, and then considering that the person who is heading this panel is a justice and has served not only Lagos State, but this country.
And knows what it is to deal with evidence.
Yes, should we now say that these eminent personalities, including civil society groups and all of that, in this panel did not do the needful? So, yes, like Mohammed may have been questioning some parts of that report, but it should not be totally discarded. And that's why we are waiting on the Lagos State government to issue a white paper and gazette the outcome of the white paper, because it's only when they do this that we now know that as a convening authority they've been able to take an action. But if they just leave it as it is right now, with some members of the panel being threatened and all of that, with some of them like Ebon Adegboru are saying that his life is being threatened, then there will be a challenge. So the onus is now on the convening authority, the Lagos State government, to quickly issue a white paper and gazette it.
That's a good point. And of course, following up on that, Mahmud Jega, he cast aspersions on the veracity of that report, the one in circulation, and suggested that it was, having said all the things he said, he then turned around and said, by the way, it's premature to instigate to castigate the government based on such an unofficial and unverified report, having of course put up a pretty robust defense already.
It's very contradictory.
But I read a report I think some days ago where one member of the panel reportedly said, the reason why there are several versions is because there was one edition that came, then we did some editing, produced a second one, and then the final one which we signed, and this and that. Then how did the previous versions get leaked out into the social?
Absolutely.
All this made for confusion. But you see what Oga Sambo said about the Lagos State government should hurry up and issue a white paper. I can see a problem there, because as we said earlier, you proceed to the stage of white paper when you are confident about the facts in the findings.
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
But now that people are disputing the findings, I wonder how easy it would be for the Lagos State government to go ahead and issue a white paper.
Yes, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But could it also be that the same government that set up this panel is also making members of the public to feel that it's no longer interested in going ahead with this same content of the panel?
And that will be a very important problem of trust.
It will be a very big challenge, because you trusted. The governor actually said that they were given a free hand to do whatever they feel like, and they invited everyone. So this Lagos State government should not create an impression that there's a political undertone to it, that because it's an all-progressive Congress government, both at Lagos State and at the center, that they will have to do certain things to favor the narrative in Abuja. Because if Lagos State government is now doing certain things to favor the narrative from Abuja that there was no massacre, no killing at all, then there will be a fundamental problem.
Absolutely. That's a very crucial point. And he said in conclusion, and that's also going to conclude this chat, that there was nothing in the reports that's circulating to make the government change its position, that there was no massacre at the Lekki toll gate on October the 20th, 2020. Do you agree with that conclusion? That's a difficult thing to ask, I suppose, because there's so many elements that are unanswered.
Well, having raised so many questions and doubts about the accuracy of the findings, then possibly it was okay for him to reach that conclusion and say he has not seen the
based on the doubts he raised.
He has not seen the evidence. What I want to know now in this difficult situation is whether the Tribunals of Inquiry Act has a provision for a review of the report before we get to the stage.
And how is he going to backtrack if it then comes out and the Lagos state government says, okay, this is what happened, there's truth to this, and we're going to implement.
Yeah, because the Lagos state government has those powers.
Absolutely.
They can actually decide to take a decision which is contrary to that of Abuja.
Absolutely. So
we're the appointing authority,
yes,
and they are the ones that can issue.
And moreover, this is just one out of several states. We are still expecting that of several states, including
so
that
very
of the FCT
interesting times ahead. Sumner, Sambo, Mahmud, Jega, always a delight to have the two of you and your extraordinary analytical skills. Thank you very much indeed.